Hi, it's Adrian Taffender from Siberian Blue. Now, I wanted to do this video just to explain to you how magical and how amazing and how special this particular Siberian Blue is, what I call the original Siberian Blue. The reason why I call it the original Siberian Blue is because it is the originating reason why it was called Siberian Blue. There was a very good friend of mine called Stefan Schwartz. He was on an interesting scientific mission in the Soviet Union, in Siberia, at a secret military city, which didn't appear on the map, didn't have a name, it only had a number. There was a number of these, back during the USSR reign and time. And while he was there, he got talking about shamanism. Shamanism is actually a Siberian word. Not many people know that. And shamanism itself originated in Siberia. And he had written a number of books on South American shamanism and kind of was interested in, talking about where it originated. And while he was having the conversation, the scientist that he was speaking to was like, we have some of the most powerful shaman in Siberia here. Would you like to meet them? And he was like, oh my God, yeah, obviously, I'd love to. So they went to this kind of healing shamanic ceremony, and while he was there, one of the shaman had this little medicine bag, which was actually a tanned reindeer scrotum. And he picked out this bit of broken blue crystal and started talking about how it's the most powerful crystal they've ever used. It opened up their spiritual sight and amplified their healing gifts. And Stefan had never seen anything quite so mesmerizing and vibrant and clear and blue, and he was fascinated by it and started asking questions. Where did it come from? Where did you get it? And they were very evasive. They avoided all the questions and put it away and changed the subject, and that was the last he heard about it. Now, he actually ran a business in Moscow. He was actually the 104th foreigner to open a business in the Soviet Union. And he had a business partner in Moscow, and he used to go there on and off for about 6 months a year. And for 2 years, every time he went, he would ask people that he would meet about, this military city and this magical crystal, and nobody ever seemed to know anything about it. Now, one day he was in London. This was about 2 years after the event, and he just decided to randomly go and visit his business partner in Moscow. Didn't tell anybody, he just jumped on a plane, flew to Moscow, went to his normal hotel, which was booked up, so he had to go to a different hotel around the corner. And he arrived there, paid, went up to his room, and when he entered his room, the phone was ringing. And back then, every individual phone had an individual number. There wasn't an exchange in the hotel. You don't ring a hotel and ask to be put through. You had to be given the number to be able to ring it. So he was like, well, nobody knows I'm here, so it can't be possibly for me. And he picked up the phone to say, you've got the wrong number. And this Russian voice went, Mr. Schwartz. Immediately then and then he knew it was something to do with the KGB. It was like, it's the only thing it could have been. And he was like, yes. And this voice went, are you still interested in the blue? And he's like, what, the blue crystal? And the voice said, yes. And he says, well, if you're interested in the blue crystal, you will meet me at the place of execution at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Which was actually a place in Red Square where they used to do executions, but as you can imagine, it sounds pretty ominous. So he goes there and is met by a KGB colonel in all the full regalia, and then escorted to a military limousine and driven in almost 3 hours silence. The only conversation they had in the whole journey was after about 30 minutes of driving. Back then you needed a special visa to go out of the city. And he turned around and he says, look, we're leaving the city, I don't have a visa. And this Russian colonel just looked at him and went, don't worry, you're with us. And that was it. And after 3 hours of driving, they arrived at this dairy farm in the middle of nowhere. And they got out, and there's kind of armed guards, and they walk in, and it is a pristine military laboratory. And this colonel starts giving him the tour. And he says, this is what we do, is we get quartz from the French mountains, and we grind it into powder, we dissolve it in acid, We purify it to take out all the contaminants. We add cobalt for the blue, and then we heat it up, and they walk to this huge glass window, and behind it there was like these 36-foot high titanium autoclaves, right, with a huge crane that was lifting the lid on with these bolts that were like huge. And he says, we heat the liquid up to 2,500 degrees, put it under immense pressure to simulate a pocket of volcanic acid, and we create the perfect environment for the crystal to grow. And it takes about 2 months for the crystal to grow, and we then spend 2 weeks cooling it down very slowly to maintain optical perfection. And it was like, well, what do you use these for? He says, well, we cut them into discs, and with laser waveguides, they dictate the color of the laser. They're only 5 nanometer bandwidth wide. And these particular lasers destroy the CCDs in enemy satellites and the sensors on nuclear torpedoes. It kind of blinded the enemy, which is kind of fascinating because the shamans used it to open their spiritual sight. So basically, to cut a long story short, he ended up buying around about 1.5 tons of this out of the back door. Now, its technical name was hydrothermal quartz, but he didn't feel that had a very saleable quality of it. And because he originally discovered it in Siberia, and it was blue, he ended up naming it Siberian Blue. Now, it just seems that this, KGB military, laboratory had created some kind of magical alchemy and created a really powerful crystal. And I mean, he didn't really use the narrative of, anything to do with the shamans. He basically just partnered with an Italian jewellery manufacturer and sold jewellery on QVC. Now, come 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed and all the laboratories got closed down. And because the manufacturers and QVC on volume, because he couldn't guarantee supply, they cut the contracts. And he had, about 300 kilos left. And he sold a few kilos, over the years, but predominantly most of it had been in storage in his garage for like 30 years. Now, I met him at a speaking conference. He does a lot of interesting research on remote viewing, and I do some remote viewing myself. And I've developed a few technologies around that. And I was speaking at the same conference as him, and we just kind of got talking, and he told me the whole story about it, and I was like, oh my God, I've got to see this crystal. And it wasn't actually until a year later that I actually went to visit his house, over in Seattle, and had to dig out these boxes that were buried in his garage. I mean, he spent hours moving everything about to get to them, and I found these wooden crates, which, I felt like a modern day Indiana Jones. These crates hadn't actually been opened. They were sealed from 35 years ago, from 1990, which was with the delivery documents that were in there. Opening this up, there was just packed in sawdust, wrapped in paper, and I was so mesmerized, and a number of very synchronistic things happened, which kind of made me believe that I'd been kind of ordained by some higher powers to take this crystal and design, very special and magical healing tools and energetic tools and shamanic tools to get out to healers and to mystics and to intuitives, to increase their powers to help with and facilitate with the change of consciousness, the great awakening that we're going through at the moment, the Mayan prophecy. So, I'm creating some of these special items. This is for the Ashta project, which is a very special project where we're actually conducting an experiment to explore, seeing if we can objectively measure alchemy, magic, manifestation, going through certain processes and using collective intention and seeing if we can manifest things and measuring, which processes work and which don't. So this is why the Siberian Blue is kind of a little bit more special than most. Now, what I also have been doing, if you look at some of my other videos, I have been carrying around a master crystal. And this master crystal is just one of the first crystals that it just kind of called to me. It was in a beautiful shape, and it just said, you know, take me, when I was first kind of going through all the crystals. And this crystal's never going to be cut up into jewellery. And I've been taking it around the world to various sacred sites. I've taken it to just give you an idea, Guanyan's Palace in Hong Kong, where I did a ceremony there. I took it to the Golden Buddha in Bangkok, where I charged it and did a ceremony there. I took it to various Buddhist temples, some in Pe, in Thailand, in Chiang Mai, various sacred waterfalls. I took it to Delos Island, the island of the gods in Greece. It's been to various, you know, spiritual places throughout Europe. It's been to the Sedona vortices, to each of the 3 vortices at Sedona, one of the earth chakras, and done ceremony there. And you can see my videos of that as well. So, and that's just to name a few. There's kind of so many more I haven't even mentioned. Which, you know, things like, when that jumped into my mind, I took it to the Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia on my travels. So I actually had it on the Pyramid of the Sun, right in the center of the peak of the Pyramid of the Sun in ceremony, and left it there to charge. Also the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico, Chichen Itza, and, you know, many others around the world. And I use this master crystal to act as a resonator. This is charged with the energy of all these amazing sacred spaces, and it goes on my altar. And what I do is I actually use that crystal to charge every single piece of jewellery that I make. So some of the earlier pieces that I've made, actually still available now, were actually an additional crystal that I took with me and was actually charged at, you know, a number of these sites. Not all of them, but a number of them. But all of them subsequently have been, you know, once they're made, they're put on the master crystal. I do candle work. I bless them with copal and frankincense, and I use sacred waters from the Tirupal water temple here in Bali to cleanse them and purify them. So, you know, I believe that crystals are, you know, as Tesla said, just little, you know, pure frequencies of consciousness. And they can absorb energy. You know, we use a crystal probably in the device you are using to watch this video, silica dioxide. In essence, that's what quartz crystals are, silica dioxide. And they store information, they store energy. And so what I've done is I've, you know, gone around and charged it with all these sacred sites to make this extra special for you. And that's what makes our original Siberian Blue something special. It wasn't a Chinese copy. You know, a lot of what's out there now was just emulated and copied in Chinese factories. And it just, from the energy work that I've done and the feedback that I've got from all my clients and muscle testing and doing, you know, pendulum work and measuring its frequency, it just doesn't compare. So this gives you a little bit of an insight as to the love, the care, the dedication and attention that goes into, you know, making these incredibly special. And every single piece of jewelry that we make is handmade, hand carved and hand produced here in Bali. Again, part of the world's chakra system, the healing capital of the planet. It's actually where the 2 major ley lines cross from the Earth's chakra system, and where a Mount Agung is, which is the kind of the center resonating frequency. So if you want a little bit of magic, every single one is serial numbered. Because they're unique and they're handmade and individual, every single one is a serial number. And once we've got the website up and running, every single piece that we ever produce, with its serial number, the date it was made, and which crystal it was made from, will be actually put on the website for authenticity. So if you ever if you ever do decide in the future that you want to, move this on, give it as a gift or sell it, you can actually show its authenticity, where it came from, and that this is part of the legendary and the legacy of that secret military city, that secret military laboratory which created this absolute amazing piece of magic. Thank you for watching.